Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Dream Chasers Ground Zero. Today, I have with us Wayne Ung. Wayne, would you mind just sharing the story with us of a personal ground zero moment of yours? And then to piggyback off of that, just kind of explaining some of the things that you've learned that have helped you get to where you are today.
Um, so my family has been doing, retail. So we've been doing donut shops, and then we came over to Texas and we did liquor store because it was only 6 days and it was 11 hours. And during all that time, I always thought about what is it there's something else to do besides sitting inside a store, and just what are the other things? Because it gets old over time, and yes, you make money and sometimes you don't, and that just takes a toll on your family and everything. So I always been, going through my, ever since I was born, and I've been told all my life is that I always have a skill where I can figure out anything that goes through. So if I have some problem in my life, I will figure it out. There's no roadblocks in my life, and I'll just pivot to something else. So I was working at this liquor store, and it's like, this is great, we're making money, but we've got to go invest in something else. Because what happens if we get tired from here? What if we do something else? There must be something else bigger. So I was like looking in real estate, because this time was 2007. We got these rental houses for half the price. So I was like, wow, this is great. So we got like 8 of them, over time, and the rental income was coming in good. Then they tightened on the rules and the prices went up, so we had to go look for something else. So I went over to the real estate meetings, and I bought everything because that's where they sell everything over there. So and I was a sucker, and I bought everything, and I tried to do the housing. I couldn't get the housing because I had to work during the Friday, and then somebody would get laid off, and then they would come and put the posts out there, and they would beat me to the houses. So I was like, okay. So somebody told me about these hotels, and I was like, that sounds interesting, because it goes into these weekly hotels will go into apartments. I was like, that's really interesting, because these hotels have daily parts, and the dailies only sell about 40 to 50, 60% of any hotel. Rarely do they sell all their hotel rooms. So um, what we do is we put these weeklies in, and they're contractors that they can stay. Um, they'll stay somewhere around 6 months to up to 3 years, and they need furnished. They can't go to an apartment building because apartments can't even write up a lease and deposits. How do you do that? And the number can be somewhere from 8 to 10, 20 rooms. So an apartment can't do that. And so, we get people who are from salespeople, people between homes, buying and selling apartments. They're waiting for lease to end, leases to be over. Um, Maybe they're redoing the house or something like that. I mean, the apartment. So, and there's truck drivers, there's Amazon people either working in there or working on it, fixing it, building it up. And we work with contracts with governments, so immigration. There's Right now there's COVID, so that's why I like this one here, because this one can weather. The hotels, like when it goes into, there's a slow season. So every hotel has a slow season. So what happens to them is either they'll lose money, or they'll only make a little bit of money. When you add these weeklies in, you either make money or you lose even less money. So that's like my first hotel was in Columbus, Ohio, and that property was 135 units. It was an old Fairfield Inn, and this lady got it. She first got into it was in 2008 and talked to the bank, and the bank said, we want $4 million for this closed property. She was like, okay, we'll talk later. So fast forward 4 years, and she got it for $600,000. And so she was like, and then she puts 400,000 into it. Another year later, she gets cancer. So they call me and they say, Wayne, I hear you have some money. So let's go into here, go into this property because all you have to do is take over the agreements with her. And it was like, oh, she's done most of the work. She's chopped down all the trees. I said, what do you mean? It was a forest that was covering there because nobody takes care of these places if nobody's there. And the bank doesn't know anything about the property because all they know about is payments. They don't know about taking care of a place. So, that's where I learned all my mistakes and, working with the city and but I saw the customers that were coming through there. So it was really nice. I mean, people always said that, no matter what hotel it was, I will always stay here because the location is very good. It's so close to downtown. I don't have to pay $100 or close to $200 after all the fees. And this one is just 10 minutes away. So they were like, oh, I love this place. I only pay $60. And I can get in and out of the freeway. It was on the way to Phoenix, to Detroit. So that way they go through there. And so we had muscle conventions, we had car conventions, we had a music festival, and in the winter, during the fall, they had the football. So it was every weekend we were full of I think it's Ohio State. They were playing the games. So and then after November, it was the slow season, because there was snow, nobody was moving around. And so we had to go through that. That was when we had the weeklies that would, keep the place warm. That was really nice. So that one there, it's like, you cash flow about $500,000 after you do everything. I mean, when I went into there, it had 7 different colors, 10 different leagues. So it was fun. It was going through there, going with the contractors, going through there, hiring them and painting up the place and everything. So, but after all that, I mean, I saw that, I was like, wow, that's pretty good. I got through with the partners and then I was like, you know what, you guys can have this, just give me my money back and I'll go to another one. So I went to another one. It's in Tucson, Arizona. And that was 100 units and it's on Benson and 10. And that one's interesting because in January, it's about right about now, for about 6 weeks, you'll cash flow $200,000 for that time. The reason why is because even regular hotels will sell for $100 and they'll pay all the whole time that they're there. So if 6 weeks, they'll pay all of it. It's like $5,000-6,000. So every room is paying $5,000-6,000. So during that time, you cannot go to Holiday Inn, Hampton Inn, Marriott or whatever, Super 8. There's not enough rooms, not enough Airbnb, tents. There's no places for you to live. So, because they're having these uh rocks and stuff. I can't, you talk to these rock people, I'm killing it. So they would describe it a lot better, but this is their meeting and they're going to come over here and they're selling these rocks for hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars. So they're selling out there and there's no room during that time. And every year they do this. And for the rest of the year, we would make 300,000. So that's 500,000. But I enjoyed that 200,000 during that 6 weeks. It was really nice. It was like going there. So, and then my last one that I just did is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So that one is on coolers and 40, and it's got 100 rooms. When we got in there, it was 2.3. It did $700,000, and I just got the sales up to $85,000 in July, and then my partners got me out. But if I stayed in there, we could sell it probably about for $4 million. If we get the sales up to 1 million, that's about 100,000. That's $100,000 a month, and we can do that because the weeklies would help out in there. So I mean, you can look at Motel 6 across the street. It's selling. There's people who are paying $60 every day, and in a month it comes out to be $1,600 to live at a Motel 6. And so I was like talking to my manager. I was like, "What are we charging for a month?" They said $800. I said, "No, we got to go to 12. We're not Motel 6. but we don't need to be like that. So, we could cash flow. So that was good. I mean, that's why I like these hotels. And then I work with a brand, so I'm the trusted franchisee from there. So they're going to be giving me special deals, and then also I will get I can work with their faculty, personnel, and whatever else they have. They're willing to share with me because I will do what it takes to get these up. And a lot of times people don't go into the franchises, they get their locations and they don't know what they're doing, or they don't listen to everything they do. So they'll call me in to do it, to take over.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that, in all of that to unpack there, I mean, obviously you had to go through some many different ups and downs. And I know you mentioned some early pivots. I mean, going from donut shops to liquor stores and then finding your way into real estate and apartment buildings. And I think that just one of the questions that comes to mind for me is really kind of how did you keep your head on straight and really what was going through your mind at the time where you didn't really know where exactly you were going next, but you knew you wanted to go somewhere different. So just kind of like what was going through your head at that time?
Um, you mean when I was like going into hotels before that? Or what do you
Like
mean?
when you were making that shift from liquor stores into real estate.
Oh, well, it wasn't much for me. I was always looking at something else. I had, tried stocks, and then, I found out it was corrupt because I have to sit there and watch it and think and know other people. So I'm like, how can I know everything? So for me, it started to hit me as like, I want to see something that's in front of me that I can see, not something where it's, in somebody else's hands and they don't know what they're doing. I can go into a business and it's like, if it's in my hand, I can go, oh, sales are slow. Let's lower our prices. Or let's do this, let's do that. Let's do this advertisement or something like that. Let's do something to pick up sales because, you can always fix something if it's in front of you. But if it's not, you're like, I don't want to call a manager to somebody else and, hey, explain to me what you're doing. Okay, we'll try to change it. Or, in stocks, they don't even care about you because you're a shareholder. Who cares?
Yeah, I think you make a really great point there that like kind of depending on the venture that you're involved in is to, control what you can control and otherwise like especially like stocks is a really great example because that's something that in the day and age that we live in now, something such as a tweet can change the entire outlook of, a portfolio.
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
yeah, go
I
ahead.
mean, yeah, I mean, what I learned from stocks now, it's kind of like I heard from this guy that manages millions of dollars, and he said something that's so important to me, and I just figured it out. And he goes, "You got to know when to go in and when to go out." And he goes, your reason for that. Your reason was because they had X number of stores. So you're going to wait until it gets to a certain number and then you sell. And so like, you don't look back at what you did because that's your number. Let's say that you bought for 20 and it went to 70 and you sell at 70, that's your target price. Then after that, if it hits 90 or 100 or $200, don't look back at it and go, why didn't I wait? You need your reason to go in. But when you go into business to buy something, that's your reason. Your reason must be that you're buying something that's good. It's a good price. And then when you get out, you have a reason to sell. Because if you don't have a reason, you'll be stuck in there and you might end up losing money.
Absolutely. I think a big thing in there is not only recognizing opportunity, but just recognizing for yourself when is the best opportunity to move to the next thing. Don't stay too long. And everybody's kind of journey is different where if somebody wants to hold longer they can hold longer but that might not be the best amount of time for you to hold where somebody else's position is not the same as yours where it's hard to not control, that's not the word I was thinking of, it's hard to compare your journey with somebody else's where their targets are different than yours, so don't necessarily get lost in the numbers that somebody else is trying to hit, focus more on the ones that are right for you.
Right, right, right. So, I mean, you can go into any asset that you're buying real estate and say that, you had to have a reason to buy it because, oh, it was cheap. I like the location and the price that the seller was giving to me were, good price. That's a good reason, and then, oh, somebody is coming to me and I just owned it for X number of years, and this is the right person that's giving me a good return. I was like, okay, that's your exit right there. So that's what you can use that principle in real estate when you do that, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense to just keep a property, because maybe another location that's going to make even more money, more use of your time. Your time is more valuable somewhere else. So that's why I went into this one here. It's like the competition is not there like apartments. I mean, the problem with apartments is like you have too many eyes on a project. So how do you get a deal on a project? It's very hard to get one. So that's why I came into here. And so everybody's not looking at this and not thinking about it the same way that we do it. So that's why I like this one here. And so the opportunities are really good in here, and the returns. That's why I'm getting apartment investors and I'm getting syndicators that are investing with us. So that's why these returns are so good.
And one of the things I liked that you mentioned earlier was that you've had to fail in order to kind of reach the levels of success that you found now. And I kind of want to go on to that for a second and just kind of ask you about some of those failures. And that is if you're willing to open up about some of those, but also just you don't necessarily have to explain exactly what happened, but just kind of how were you able to manage those failures and then reapply that to just continue working for the goals that you had in mind.
Well, my failures is kind of like it's like I couldn't make it in the stocks, and then I looked at it and I thought about it. I was like, it's while it's expensive, you learned a lot of there from. I learned that you have to have a reason to come in and a reason to get out. So had I gone into school, I only went like 2 years of school, sick of college. So I didn't even go into 4 years or MBA or anything like that. But I learned this through hard knocks and it's just spending money. So I said like, well, what can you do? You lost the money, just learn from it and don't do it again. That's all you can do. I mean, that's all you can do in life is just learn from it and just don't do the same mistakes and go on to something else. I mean,
Absolutely. Sometimes I think for some of us that learning through the hard knocks, as you said, is really one of the best ways to learn because I think that in certain situations that those mistakes, I guess you could say that you make that hit you the hardest are the ones that you won't make again. Where, like you said, like I think the term hard knocks is actually really fitting because those ones that hit you the hardest where whether that be financially, whether that be emotionally, whatever really that is, those are the ones that you are going to then take and say, okay, well, I'm not doing that again, and you're going to
yeah,
make sure that you learn from whatever that mistake may have been. So that's why I think that one of the most important things is that like there's not enough of us nowadays that are just willing to go out there and mess up
right,
where it's where you're willing to go out and make mistakes. Everybody's afraid to make mistakes, and I'm not saying that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, as that comes with the game. The risk is there, but you have to be willing to go out and mess up to put yourself in the opportunity to learn. And that's where that the lesson is there, where you said like you went into stocks and you realized that it wasn't really for you, but you learned so much, where you then said that, yeah, I went in and it didn't work out the best at every opportunity, but I learned from that and then I can reapply that into what I'm doing now. That's where just not being afraid to necessarily go out and mess that up puts you ahead of a vast majority of the population, because there's so many people out there that never do anything because they're too afraid to try. And that's where if you can take that chance, and whether it goes wrong or goes right, you just take that chance and put yourself into that opportunity, and you learn something from each attempt, you're going to end up far more educated as well as experienced than everybody else, because there's like I said, a vast majority of people that aren't even trying, that don't even know what those opportunities hold or what lessons are therein. So, treating every attempt as the opportunity is where really, I guess you could say the gold mine is. I don't know if that's necessarily the best term, but you're going to learn one of two things by trying. And it's either going to be what does work or what doesn't work. And either way, you're then able to reapply that into what you're doing next. Whether, if it works, okay, great. Now I know what works and I can figure out, the next best thing. Or I learned that this doesn't work. Okay, now what can we do to make it work? It's just,
Right.
it is a lot of trial and error, but that is where the learning is. And that's where, like you said, those hard knocks do come and go. But that's kind of the gauntlet, if you will, that you kind of have to go through to find that level of success for yourself.
Right. I mean, I always remember, somebody was telling me somewhere, if you do something correct, you learn three things. And then if you do something wrong, you learn 10 things. So it's like, it's great to win, but to lose, you'll learn everything. You'll go like, oh, I should have done this. I should have done that. And you think, and the time to reflect and to think about what you did, that's the most important. It's good to win, but you're gonna get a lot, but you're gonna get a lot more from losing. And so I think that really helps you out. That's what I try to teach my kids and everything like that is like, don't be scared to go and make a mistake, because how are you going to learn if you don't make a mistake? So,
100%. And that's definitely where I think that a lot of power in what we've talked about today lies, is just, go make those mistakes. As you just mentioned, I mean, if you really want to put it into numbers, I mean, obviously each one comes with different scenarios, but in the specific example that we just said, you said you win, you learn three things, you lose, you learn 10 things. Well, me, if I'm going to learn 10 things every time I lose, I'm going to go out and lose, because I want to learn, you know what I mean? Like that's where the power is essentially. And like, yes, obviously we want to win, but if you're learning more losing, eventually you're going to pass up the people that are winning, just as far as the numbers go.
yeah,
And, I understand that emotionally losing doesn't feel good.
yeah,
But at the same time, when you're starting out, that's why losing is so important, because little do you know, every time you lose, you're increasing your experience exponentially
yeah,
compared
yeah,
to what the people, that you see on Instagram or wherever, you're spending your time, compared to the people that you're seeing that are winning. They're already there. They're not learning so much anymore. Don't get me wrong. They're still learning,
you're right, right,
but they're moving at a slower pace now. They're more large movers, where you, now being by yourself, you can move as quick as you want to.
right,
So
right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. It's like, I've had my parts where I'm sad and, I'm thinking about what I did and I'm like, oh, I should have done this. I should have done that. But, at the time with the information that you had, that's what you had to do. And so you have to look at it one way and look the other way and just go, well, this is what I learned from it. And I'll use that when I'm going forward and pick up the best parts of it, and the bad parts, don't do them again or try not to do them again. So, there's no guarantee as long as you're alive that you'll make the same mistake. But at least when you make that mistake, you'll go, bam, that's a mistake right there. Let's change right away. So, it's like we're going somewhere, you're thinking like, oh, this is the wrong way. Cut it off right there. Go back to where you're going to go because you're going down the wrong direction. So that's, before, if you didn't know that, you just keep going down the wrong direction and you're like, oh, but the error in your ways because you already made that error.
absolutely. So I really think that is, one of the most important points in what we've talked about here today. And, I really think that I think we drove that home pretty well. And I know that you do have somewhere to be here shortly. So we're going to go ahead and start to wind it down a little bit. In closing, one of the questions that I always like to ask the guests is really, if you had an opportunity to go back and have a conversation with yourself in that ground zero moment, what do you think that you would tell yourself in that conversation?
I would say learn the best things, learn the best parts of this, because this is going to help you out later in your life and it'll just make you stronger. And don't dwell on what you did wrong, because that's what your strength comes from. And don't think that you lost here doesn't mean that you're winning. So that's what I would say to my younger self. And I would say, you know um, just go through it, because and be happy and be because you've went, just like you were saying, how many other people won't even, start, won't even do anything, and you're doing stuff. So there.
Absolutely. I think that what you just mentioned is actually really, really powerful. There's a quote that I heard, I think it was in a movie trailer just a couple days ago. And
Probably was.
it was actually so good that I wrote it down. That's why I was thinking about it. And it goes along the lines of, your mistakes don't define you, the way that you heal does. And I think that's where, like what you just said is extremely important, because, like, you're going to get knocked down, but it's the attitude that you have after the fact that truly defines, what you're going to become. And that's where, like, the way that you heal does, because, like, do you get up and try again, or do you give up and try something else? And now, I don't want to get any lines crossed there, that there are times, as we've mentioned already in this episode, where you do need to get out. And, there are times where you need to recognize that. But at the same time, you know, just, you also have to know when that loss or when that failure is just a lesson to then reapply and try again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, if you've seen that, if your errors go and you go like, well, this is just a minor area, minor. So, and long term, it won't be much of an error. So it's the wrong way. But you just go, oh, okay. Like these partners. Okay, fine. Next time I won't partner with lawyers because they don't do anything. All right. The wrong partners. Never go back with partners. So it for lawyers. So that you remember that and you go, okay, that's not what's wrong here. The whole idea was correct. It's just the partners or some part of it was wrong. So
100%. Well, Wayne, like I said, I know you do have somewhere to be here shortly. So I just want to say thank you so much again for just being willing to come on and share your story, as well as what you've learned along the way with myself, as well as the listeners. Do you kind of have any other kind of closing thoughts before we go ahead and close it down?
I was just going to say that, my website is Hotel Capital Inc. .info. And if you want to reach me, my email is Wayne at Hotel Capital Inc. .info. I would just say that, these opportunities in these hotels, it's just like, we're going to be going through a lot of locations because of the brand. And so, it's, every time I tell people, people are just like, thank you for telling me. And I'm like amazed. Like, it's like, I didn't know about this. So, yeah, I'm just glad that I was on here and I told you about this here, and everybody that's going to be seeing this and hearing about this. So go ahead and contact me. I like to talk to anybody and, tell them all about this. And it's going to be, a really good opportunities. But it was good meeting you too.
Yes, thank you so much. We will go ahead and put all of those links in the show notes as well. So if anybody's listening right now, go ahead and check those out. The links to contact Wayne will be there. But in closing, everyone, I just want to say thanks again for tuning in. Wayne, thank you so much again for just being willing to come on and share your experience. As I've mentioned, always remember, everyone, this is Dream Chasers Ground Zero, and there's nowhere to go from here. But
Bye.
thanks again, Wayne.
Bye. Thank you.